Detroit was make they shit.
There's a sense of hustle and never give up.
All the genres come together in Detroit.
Hi, I'm Hanif Abdurraqib. I am an essayist, a poet, and a cultural critic. I grew up on the punk scene in the Midwest as a kid in Ohio. We would drive across the state borders to go to Detroit to see house shows or basement shows or shows in places like The Shelter. And what I know more than anything is that music comes from somewhere. When it comes to Detroit music history, most people have the name recognition of Berry Gordy. Some people know Aretha Franklin and how Aretha Franklin can make a place like the Fox Theater feel like a church. And that history is magnificent and it belongs to Detroit forever. But what intrigues me about Detroit and what I believe is the engine of the city are these lesser told stories. The people making beats in classrooms, working day jobs so that they can DJ at night. This series is largely about people who made things and who innovated and created and invented while no one else is paying attention. People who did this not knowing if it would lead to any great success, but they did it because they cared deeply about this city that made them who they are.
Detroit is like this stamp of authenticity. We know you had to go through some shit to get here, and that gives it almost a purity of purpose.
Every episode of Living for the City, we explore a different theme. In this one, it's labor, what Detroit's working class identity built into its music, and what that music owes the assembly line. I talked to Berry Gordy IV, whose father literally wrote songs in the back of a car on his own factory floor before he built Motown. I catch up with Don Was, who played bar gigs for $10 or $15 a night before he became one of the most important producers in the world. I meet Kevin Saunderson, one of the 3 teenagers who invented techno in a Detroit suburb because there was nothing else to do after school. And I talked to Bill Blackwell, Bob Seger's longtime tour manager, about what it meant to grind it out in a city that demanded you earn it before it claimed you. I know what it is to clock out and spend the rest of your hours trying to find the part of yourself the job didn't take. In Detroit, that part became techno. It became rock. It became Motown. It became hip hop. It became something the whole world is still listening to. Belleville, Michigan, 25 miles outside of Detroit, is the kind of place where not a lot is happening. Specifically, if you are a young high school kid. You go to school, you get out of school, and you have to find ways to fill the time, which became a miracle scenario for Juan Atkins, Derek May, and Kevin Saunderson, who filled their empty hours with sound.
I met Derek and Juan's brother Aaron at North Junior High on the football team. Because I was friends with them and in Belleville, there wasn't much to do besides go to school and play sports. So like afterwards, I'll just go over to Aaron's house. So that's really how I met Juan. I would see like keyboards and equipment that I really didn't know what, like a piano, but not a piano.
The early days of just trying to prove all of our parents wrong was really what we were putting in and doing all that music as we were young.
Right.
You know, because those of us who didn't want to go work at the post office or go work at the plant or go and do that stuff, we had to prove that what we were doing was satisfactory in a town of working class people that just think that musicians are degenerates and and have this fantasy idea.
In the mid-'80s, if you were on Gratiot Avenue in Detroit, there was a small stretch of street that held 3 studios. Juan, Derek, and Kevin all posted up there, their doors open, the future of sound flooding onto the sidewalks.
There was Techno Boulevard right off of Gratiot, which I had my studio. Juan Atkins had his studio, and Derek May had his studio. So guess what? People would go visit Derek, then they might go up to Juan's, then they'd come to me, vice versa. Yeah. The network and the inspiration from people, our doors were just open and we wanted to also help people.
There was always machines running between their studios. So there was always a 909 or two 909s or something. There was always some new synths that were coming up because Kevin was getting really famous at the time with Inner City.
We were just driven by our passion. Juan was really doing his own thing, but he didn't know how serious we were and how much he was inspiring us. We just living our dream and passion. It was with our human feeling, touching these and giving it a feel from us that helped create this movement of techno.
While Detroit was innovating techno, they had a sibling and a rival growing its own sound, house music out of Chicago.
We would drive to Chicago, especially me and Derek, multiple times, give our records out to Farley, Chippy, Hitman, Bad Boy Bill, and we would hear our records being played in these mix shows along with house music. Techno was before, but Chicago was not far behind, but Chicago had a bigger scene. They had more support at that time, and they had a radio station playing house, and then Detroit was fitting right in there. So that was a lot of inspiration. People would say like, you better study. I had no interest in my books at that time. I was just all about that. We all had our own record company, all had our own label, putting out our music overseas. Really didn't have a clue till I went over there. I went over there in '88.
And Paul Oakenfold played.
He played Big Fun.
Played Big Fun, yeah.
And I was like, wow, I never seen a crowd like just get up and go. Like the scene is just moving so quick in the UK.
My dad, he loves the songwriting. What he used to do is for a motor company, he would pay his friend to do his work. He had to do something around the windows, you know, put the rubber around the windows or something. So my dad paid his friend to do his job. When my dad laid in the back of a car at his own assembly line writing songs, he followed his passion. And he built Motown based on being an assembly line.
You might say.
You know, the same thing.
From Michigan's Motortown, a new export was added to cars, the Detroit sound.
The assembly line mentality that went into Motown had to do with things like quality control and just the way they organized the day. There'd be a rhythm track day, then the next day was a vocal day, then the next day was a string and horn day.
Dad figured that he get an incredible artist, someone that had great talent, put him into this assembly line, give him great songs, great production, you know, make sure they look and present themselves really well. On the assembly line, you put all this element in, and then at the end, you got this star. And then now you got to market the star. But that was his idea. And I think he did that time and time again, I'm telling you, you know.
During its prime, Motown took its creative inspiration from the assembly line. There were rhythm track days, vocal days, strings and horns days, dancing lessons, mastering things like etiquette, and also quality control.
A work ethic is not unique to Detroit, but there is something about the culture here, and like everything in Detroit, you could probably ultimately trace it back to the automobile.
We were talking about this idea of grinding and work, labor, how that's tied to so much of Detroit's musical identity. In the realm of rock music, when you were coming up, how did you see that labor play out, this kind of grind you're talking about, and how did that impact the music and the people making it?
We are the Motor City, definitely a blue-collar, working-class town.
There's a sense of hustle and never give up.
When someone just says, oh, we'll just jam, Bob is like, no, we sound check every day, and we'll probably sound check for close to 90 minutes.
Like another ounce of sweat will get me where I'm trying to go. I mean, Eminem's Lose Yourself speaks to that in its very core. And I think Bob Seger is a perfect representation of that. Somebody who just grinded it out for years and finally found his voice in the mid-70s.
In several of Bob's songs, you can, hear that kind of assembly line rhythm.
He's a guy who was a household name in Detroit well before he was a national success. Most folks I talk to from that time period will say, oh yeah, Bob Seger played my high school. Everybody's got a Bob Seger story.
He played in my high school, or I saw him at a high school dance. I ultimately got to work with him. I produced some records with him.
Carl Craig has been shaping dance floors around the world for 30 years as one of Detroit techno's great architects. But when it comes to the working man's Detroit, he wanted to talk about Bob Seger.
Prince went to see Bob Seger, and he saw how the music impacted the stadium, and that's what made him write Purple Rain.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I love a lot of those Seger records in the same way that I love, say, Springsteen records or John Cougar Mellencamp records that are speaking to or turned towards the working class of a very specific region. But I sometimes think Seger doesn't always get the same kind of credit for speaking to Detroit in the way that those folks have spoken to Indiana and Jersey. Do you feel like he is unique in his approach of how he thinks about and talks about a working class city like Detroit?
Detroit has always loved Bob. The promoters would find out when is Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler payday. So to know when checks were, being issued, so the auto workers would have, funds to buy tickets. There's one story I want to tell you about Bob's popularity, in the automotive world. There was a golf tournament called the Buick Open. Tiger Woods, the number one golfer in the world, had a deal with Buick, so he was asked to play. Bob was asked if he would participate in golf with Tiger for the charity, which, other than the nervousness of golfing with Tiger, he said, well, of course, I'll do it for the charity. It's like the third encore at Cobo Hall. People go nuts, and all of a sudden they're holding up Live Bullet albums. They are screaming. Tiger looks over his shoulder like, what the heck is going on? So as we're walking, Tiger, again, always understated, looks at Bob, he goes, it appears they know who you are here.
He's a case of, there's real Detroit pride with a guy like that who had done it here before the rest of the world discovered him.
Detroit is a city that is in large part defined by the automobile, not just the automobile, but the automobile industry and what it was to work in that industry for people, what it was to work on an assembly line and have rigor and close attention to detail in order to build a machine. But also the rhythm of the assembly line informed the musical nature of the Detroit to come. I loved hearing from musicians in Detroit who had jobs, not side hustles, but jobs that consumed much of their days. They would lend a part of themselves to labor and then return home to their basements or their studios, or they would go out and DJ any place that would have them. I know what this feeling is like. The feeling of clocking out and doing whatever it takes to regain the part of yourself that propels you to the next set of hours and the next set of hours until your dreaming becomes touchable enough for you to clock out for good.
There's a famous guitarist from Detroit. His name is Dennis Coffey. And Dennis Coffey made a great career in disco, and I guess things dropped off, and then he went and worked at the plant. Retired from the plant, started playing guitar again. That's like Detroit, like guys will work their jobs and make records on their own terms because they got a regular day job.
DJ Minx has been holding down Detroit's techno scene for over 30 years. But before she was behind the decks, she was behind a desk at General Motors.
I was working at General Motors, and I just had my second daughter. So I had things to do at home. So I was producing music in between taking care of home, and things just got to be a bit much.
And even the musicians who would eventually become household names had to survive Detroit first.
I worked bar gigs for $10, $15 a night, and then sometimes the union guys would come by, take $5 of it because I wasn't reporting it. There was a point where I thought I wasn't going to make it. I finally found a job repairing copy machines. They enrolled me involuntarily in something called the Dale Carnegie sales course. And I used the techniques that I learned in the Dale Carnegie sales course to get that record deal too. So the lowest point turned out to be a really important point.
Back when I used to work a 9-to-5 office job, I got very good at looking busy while in a Word document,
buried underneath my spreadsheets or analytical forms, I was writing poems. And every writer I knew did this because I came around writers who had to work jobs to support their art making. Detroit's a real city of process, and so I think a lot of the artists there are oftentimes working against odds that seem insurmountable, but the process is what they are committed to, and historically the fruits of that process have been really rich coming out of this place. In every thriving music scene, I think in the history of every thriving music scene, the one thing that these cities and places have in common is that if there is a place that is affordable for musicians or artists or creative people to congregate, really great things come out of that.
Detroit, it was so like broken down. We had big houses. 5 people could live in this house. So your rent was probably like $200. So you could go on tour, you could do anything. You weren't afraid of losing your job. We wanted to be good for each other. You know what I mean? If you were playing with somebody good, you wanted to be just as good. You know what I mean? Not to pull them down, but you wanted to play with somebody who was just as good as you or just as cool as you. You know what I mean?
One thing I found is that in Detroit, there has always kind of been this collaborative spirit.
We were trying to outdo each other for the sake of it, not to get signed. I mean, for the pure love of the sport of playing music and making music, you know?
Dilla's importance to Detroit was not only his intense focus on craft, but also the democratization of genius. He worked first out of a space that was open to people. His space could become yours, and you would leave a better artist than you were when you entered.
I just happened to meet Dilla, and it changed my life, you know, just that quick, you know.
Dilla was the worker. Dilla was in the basement. Dilla didn't come out to his own group shows half of the time because he'd rather make beats. I would be over there chilling. He gave me his process when he started showing me how to make beats. He had a notebook, he was giving me all the bars.
We're here in Detroit on Dilla's birthday, and it's a meaningful day for the city, of course, but it's also a meaningful day for like all of us who grew up with Dilla's music, love Dilla's music, and you have such a unique perspective because he was someone who was a mentor to you, but also like worked on your records really rigorously.
I think the craziest thing about him is his ability to multitask in the studio. He made beats in sequences, so he would work on 3 or 4 beats, you know, at the same time, and, you know, go from, you know, sequence, you know, add on to that beat and maybe go to another sequence that he created.
The main thing that was most important was he was like, have that shit finished when it comes out. That stereo, left, right, no posts. You don't want to have to clean up some shit later. I went out to New York to see Wajid. He was DJing the Joe's Pub for the Donuts release party. Dilla died the next day. I got on the plane.
I remember like my initial immediate heartbreak when Dilla passed was that I was very aware that we were never going to get another person like that again. With Dilla, it was like this was a singular person and a singular producer. And I'm really aware of the fact that there's a difference between the world losing someone and a city losing someone.
I couldn't lay in that coffin. Like Detroit was a coffin. I had to grieve somewhere else.
Detroit is a close-knit city of musical brilliance, which can lead to a natural sense of competitiveness. Though I was surprised to see that in many cases, that competitiveness wasn't propelled by bitterness or petty infighting. The prevailing sense is that everyone has to be good. Everyone has to work to be good. Everyone has to be rigorous in approach because it sets the stage for the artist next to them to ascend. And so it's a city of creative people in close proximity, modeling care and attention and craft for each other and across generations, so that the city's creative spirit can remain intact and remain sharp with the correct approach.
Detroit is a competitive place, man, and we were all cool, but at the same time, you wanted to be the best MC. I couldn't come to the open mic sounding like, somebody else. So it was intimidating, man, but it was, I saw some great MCs. I learned from some great MCs, some MCs that I call friends to this day, and we built a really healthy competition. I was scared of being the worst MC that week at the open mic, and that wasn't gonna be me, you know what I'm saying, if I can help it.
Aretha Franklin is Detroit's beloved daughter. The other part of the distance between what it is to be born in a place and what it is to be of a place is all about how that place embraces you. And Aretha, despite not being from Detroit, was absolutely of Detroit.
Detroit always felt like home to Aretha. This is where, we got our roots. She loved Detroit, and Detroit has shown her a lot. Even the shows that we would do here at the Fox Theater, the music hall, they were all packed because they knew that Aretha was going to show out. She would sometimes kind of be disciplined, She would get angry. She would tell, I don't need you anymore. I don't want you to do this. But after a while, she would call like nothing happened. That told me she's really, caring. And she wanted her stuff to be perfect.
Right.
She wanted us to dance. I said, Aretha, I am not a dancer. You can do it. I said, no, I'm not a dancer. I got 2 left feet. She said, no, you can do it. Come on, you can do it. So I ended up doing it. We were doing the midnight special and we were doing a routine. She wanted everything to be perfect. The sound, the routines, the look. She wanted to be the queen. And that's what we tried to give her.
Don't let this sweet emotion be denied.
Detroit is a city of creative people modeling care and attention to craft for each other across generations. And so if there is a competitiveness that exists, it exists in an effort to lift everyone up. It's kind of like if we all work hard, everyone wins.
What is special about it to me, as someone who is not from here but loves it, is that it does feel futuristic and timeless in a way. Like, it still feels futuristic to me right now. And so I can't imagine what it felt like in 1987, 88 to someone who might have been first encountering it.
Detroit built a lot of things in private first before the public got a hold of them. They built sounds and styles in basements, in bedrooms, in garages. And so next time, we're going to go and find those places.